There's really no such thing as the objectively perfect microphone, but if you're searching for a solid option, the idea of a great sounding mic with XLR and USB functionality at a reasonable price point is hard to ignore. While some sound better than others, let's see if the Samson Q9u is the right mic for you. And I'm using the Q9u right now because I want to give you as many Samson samples as I can in this video. But before we jump into the technical side of things, just a couple of quick disclosures. The first and foremost being that Samson did send me this microphone for free. And I'm always a little hesitant to accept anything for free, but Samson was super cool with the ethics statement that I have on my website, which there's a link to in the description of this video. They sent me the mic with no strings attached. And I could make a video or not make a video. I don't have to say anything about it. And the reason that I accepted the free microphone is because I've been on the wait list for this mic for months and months, and it was announced ages ago, but it's only now starting to become available, and I didn't think I was ever gonna get one for like a really long time. And that's what we're going to talk about all today. Of course, there are chapter markers right down here where you can skip around. Most of this video is going to be all about the features and the sound quality of the Q9u, but we are also going to talk a little bit about the Shure MV7 because I did do a pretty extensive review on the MV7 and I like it, but I had a few criticisms of it that the Q9u pretty much addresses all of. And I think that in a lot of ways, the Q9u is everything that the MV7 Shure should have been. And I've also got this camera set up over here specifically so you can see how far away I'm talking from different microphones throughout this video. So just to give you some background, the Q9u is a dynamic broadcast microphone with XLR and USB-C connectivity, which is something I wanted to see on the MV7, but this microphone only had micro USB, which made me sad. This is an extremely well-built microphone. It's also incredibly heavy. I've said in many videos that the PodMic is the heaviest mic I've ever used. It's a very heavy mic. The PodMic weighs 2.022 pounds, which is about 917 grams. The Q9u weighs 2.119 pounds, which is 961 grams. I know that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with audio quality, but it's tough when we're talking about these microphones and you can't physically feel them for me to communicate build quality and durability. And this is a very well-built microphone, but it is, because of that weight, it's the first microphone that's ever made my PSA-1 droop a little bit. So actually need to take a screwdriver and tighten the tension screw. There we go. Now I have it adjusted. And I think that's important to be aware of because depending on how you're planning to mount your microphone, it may or may not be too much for your boom arm to handle. The PSA-1 does handle it just fine, but you might need to pay attention to the tension screws and tighten them up a little bit so you don't screw up the microphone by having it fall. Design-wise, I think this is an incredibly good-looking microphone. It does have a mute switch right on the side, a mute button, which is awesome. Lots of USB microphones have mute options. The MV7 does as well. But in my experience, microphones that are USB and XLR combos, the mute switch only works for USB. But in this case, it works on XLR as well. If I press it, and if I press it again, then you should be able to hear everything. That's incredibly handy for video conferencing, being in live streams with other people. You can just quickly mute and unmute yourself. It does come with a pretty thick windscreen that just slides right on, and then no plosives are gonna get through at all. I just like the way that it looks more without it. Maybe that's shallow and vain, but I don't know. Half the time I'm using a microphone, I'm on camera, and I think this looks really cool. Let me put on some headphones just so I can hear how these all sound. If we do some plosives, Peter Piper pitched a podcast. It's really not too bad. I'm kind of trying to really like puh that there. And if I pop the windscreen on, Peter Piper pitched a podcast. Peter Piper puh 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 puh. It's got a really good just built-in windscreen, and this can just help a little bit. Design-wise, it also has a couple of things that I really, really like that really... This is why I'm so hung up on the MV7. And I know this doesn't need to be a direct comparison, but when the MV7 was announced, which I do like this microphone, please don't get me wrong, it was sort of marketed, I guess, as being like, hey, it's sort of an updated, modern, USB compatible version of the SM7B, which is a legendary microphone. And I just expected it to take a few more features from the SM7B that it didn't. The back of the MV7 has the micro USB jack and a headphone port. The back of the Q9u, here is an SM7B just for reference, and so I can show you this. The back of the Q9u has the USB-C jack, and it also has a headphone jack, but not unlike the back of the SM7B, it has switches for bass roll-off and high-end roll-off. So you have a little bit of built-in equalization right into the microphone. The SM7B has that as well. So now we can come back to the Q9u. These are the settings straight out of the box. And just to give you an idea of what those built-in switches do, this is, right, the mid. Yeah. This is the mid. So this should be a mid boost, which should boost some of those mid-range frequencies. If I press that, now you can hear it kind of has boosted mids. So if that's what you want, just straight out of the microphone, you can get that sound. If I flip it back, now this is straight out of the box again. And not unlike a dubstep song in 2013, when I flip the bass switch, it should drop the bass by about 3 decibels. So if I flip the switch, now you can kind of hear there's a little less bass. And if I turn both of them on, now we've reduced bass and we've boosted the mids and we get that really like high gain sound, which I'm not a huge fan of. But again, that just depends on your voice and your application. So this is the default tone, just straight out of the box. And just for some quick comparisons, this is the Q9u and this is an SM7B, both set completely neutral with none of the switches being flipped, just I guess straight out of the box with no additional processing. SM7B and the Q9u. I think they're both really rich, full sounding microphones. And one other thing I really love about the Q9u, which is a feature that I think it took from the SM7B, it's called a knurled knob, which sounds kind of like a sports injury, but it's something I wish many more microphones had, and that's on the yoke, the mounting yoke. I'm going to switch over to the SM7B actually. It does something which is very cool. If you want to mount it, instead of having to spin the microphone physically around on your stand, you just turn this little knob. So what that means is you can position the microphone however you want it on your boom arm or your mic stand, get it positioned exactly where you want it, and then you just tighten this knob. And there you go. And now it is perfectly mounted. I think that is an awesome feature that I wish more microphones had. And again, going back, it's going to sound kind of like I'm, poo-pooing all over the MV7 here. But if you look at the MV7, it looks like it has that. Like it's molded into it, into the mount, but it doesn't. And the fact that it's sort of, like taking after its big brother, the SM7B, I wish that would have been in there. So that's where it's like, this really does feel like a USB XLR SM7B, whereas this feels like a different kind of thing altogether. And one other thing about the Q9u is it's stated to have a really high output. And I've noticed that because I don't have to turn the gain up as high as I do, or I shouldn't say the gain, the volume slider up as high as I do with some of my other microphones. It is running through a Cloudlifter right now into the Rodecaster Pro. My gain is set to plus 35, where it pretty much always is, and the volume slider is just above halfway. That's with a Cloudlifter. I'm going to switch it to not be using the Cloudlifter, and now this is without the Cloudlifter. The volume slider is almost all the way at the top. Actually, now it's all the way at the top of the channel, but gain is still set to plus 35, and it should be about the same level that I had it at with the Cloudlifter. So I definitely think you can get away without using it, especially I just raised the gain to plus 40 on the Rodecaster, and now I was able to turn the volume slider down just a little bit above where I had it with the Cloudlifter, and I'm getting plenty of a signal. So huge benefit. If you get something like the SM7B, especially the SM7B, I think you definitely need a Cloudlifter or some kind of signal amplifier, a FET head or a dynamite or whatever, something to boost the signal. You really need that to make this microphone shine. The PodMic is kind of a yes or no. A lot of it depends on the mixer that you're using. But the Q9u really seems like sure, a Cloudlifter or a booster would help. However, I don't think it's super necessary, and you could definitely get by without it, which can be easier on your budget. And now I am switched back to the Cloudlifter because I do prefer it, and I have the Cloudlifter, so I'm going to use it. So I'm running through the Cloudlifter, no additional processing, gain set to plus 35. And as for criticisms of this mic, to be honest, I don't really have much. The biggest thing will be to see how long it lasts because it's new. So, we don't have the data yet for, it'll last 10 years. The instructions say that it will. Every Samson product I've owned in the past has lasted a long time, which has been a lot of mic stands and boom arms and things like that. So I think it should be just fine. The only other little nitpicks that I would have with it are that it doesn't have tightening knobs right here. So like so many other microphones, the SM7B, the MV7, the PodMic, they have these knobs right here that you position the microphone and then tighten it and it stays there. This microphone doesn't have those, and it's supposed to be self-tightening, which means that however you position it, it should never come loose. And it feels really tight and really firm right now. So in that case, it shouldn't be a problem. Whereas if I loosen these knobs on one of these microphones, the mic won't stay where you want it, and you have to make sure that they're tightened. But it does give you total control over exact positioning and exact tension. But otherwise, I think this is such a good microphone. And now I want to shift gears just a little bit, shift your ear gears just a little bit, and really talk about the MV7. Because I think that, how do I put this? I think there's a couple different people who are going to be watching this video. I hope there's more than a couple different people. If you're somebody who's watched a lot of my videos, then you kind of know like different microphones that I've talked about, and you know how much I've recommended the PodMic. And you might have even purchased a PodMic based on my recommendations. I own 3 PodMics. I really like these. I think that if you're looking for an XLR mic, especially in the budget range, this is absolutely the way to go. The SM7B obviously is a classic choice, but it is a much more expensive microphone. You can get about 4 PodMics for the cost of one SM7B for the most part. And that's where I think these ones are very interesting. Because when it comes to the MV7, I don't think the Q9u has a lot to be envious about. Now, a couple of disclaimers. I did do a 35-minute review all about the MV7. And in that review, I said that I really liked it. I do love the sound quality of this microphone. And I talked about this sort of intangible quality, that it's a very fun microphone to use. That's a very subjective opinion. I don't know how to communicate that through video, but it is a really fun microphone. I've used it a lot. I really enjoy it, but I had 3 big gripes with the MV7. Let's switch over to it right now, actually. A couple of my big gripes. One were the price. The MSRP for the MV7 is $311. I've never seen it actually sold for that much personally, but that is the MSRP. And the actual problems I had were the plosives with this super cheap windscreen that comes with it. If you've ever purchased like a $15 or $20 bargain microphone, this is like the same windscreen that comes with it. It's not good. Now, I was able to fix that pretty inexpensively by just buying an SM7B windscreen. It fits right on there, and then now there's really no plosive problem. If you look closely at it, you can tell that it's probably not designed to work this way, but it doesn't look too bad, and it eliminates that plosive problem. Actually makes this look much more similar to the SM7B. And then the other big issue was micro USB as the connection. And in my review, I got a lot of messages and a lot of comments from people telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about because installing USB-C would have been more difficult or more expensive, and I didn't understand anything about engineering. And they're right. I don't know anything about those things, but what I do know is that the Q9u has USB-C connectivity, which makes a lot more sense for a microphone coming out in the 2020s decade, because that's just a much more universal connection, and it's much easier to use. And when you get this microphone, it does come with 2 USB cables. It comes with a super long, sorry, I don't remember the exact length, but it comes with a very long USB-C to USB-C cable and another very long USB-C to USB-A cable. Now, of course, the MV7 does have the benefit of all these different options right here. So if I connect it to USB, then you can see these lights and indicators, and that's when I can use the mute switch and change the volume right here on the microphone, which is pretty awesome. This doesn't have, the Q9u doesn't have any added functionality once you connect it to USB. It works the same way as it does without it. So if you purchase the MV7, it's a wonderful microphone, especially if you can add another filter and then it takes care of the plosive problem. And if you're surviving with micro USB, everything is good. But all of those things have been taken care of here, and it addresses the USB-C problem, and it addresses the plosive problem because it has a better built-in windscreen, and it comes with a better built-in windscreen. Another option, I guess I should say, for the MV7 is you can get a big windscreen like the one that comes with the Q9u and put the MV7 windscreen inside of it, and then you won't have any no plosives are getting through this at all, and it actually doesn't look too bad. While we're talking about it, let's check out some of the USB functionality. Now, as you'd probably expect, oh, that's weird. Now, this is sort of strange. I was gonna talk about how awesome it is to be able to use XLR and USB at the same time. I've checked my cable, I've checked my adapters, but when I plug in USB, I don't know if you can hear this or not. It introduces this little sound in the background. So I've been playing around with this for a little while now, and I've made some discoveries, at least with my setup, everything running through the Rodecaster. You might have to see if your mileage may vary. But when I plug in USB and XLR through the Rodecaster, I'm getting that high-pitched sound, that interference sound. Through USB, though, I don't pick up that sound. So even when I'm hearing it here through the Rodecaster, the computer through USB is not picking it up, which tells me that the USB is interfering with the XLR in some way. Just for the fairness of a comparison, the MV7, when it's connected with XLR and USB, does not give that ringing sound. So even though this is turned on right now, I don't hear any ringing in my ear through XLR, and there's nothing being picked up on USB. So the MV7 does not have any interference when it's connected through USB, but the Q9u brings in that interference sound. Interesting. So that, I think, is one of those things that could potentially be a deal breaker for you if recording XLR and USB at the same time is a really important part of your workflow. This, I don't know, would be great, at least not with my setup with the Rodecaster, and that's a pretty decent setup. But if that's not a part of your workflow, like I use XLR 90% of the time, and I personally never use them at the same time, so it's not an issue for me. The USB recording quality is really nice. So if I switch over to USB, this is USB being recorded directly into Adobe Audition on the computer. I think that it's great sound quality, and obviously you don't need any sort of mixer or booster or anything like that to get this quality. This is just directly plugged into the computer. I am using Audition, but you could just record in QuickTime or any other audio recording software, whatever your software of choice might be. So now we're doing some tests here, and this is kind of interesting. We'll have to see how this fits into the overall video. And a little more testing helped me pinpoint the issue specifically to the computer, meaning that when I have this microphone connected via USB and I have an audio app open in the computer, whether it's Audition, QuickTime, or anything else, that's when I hear that high-pitch interference. As soon as I close one of those applications, and I guess the USB functionality is not being accessed by the computer, the high-pitched whine goes away, even though it's still connected. However, this microphone does work with the iPad Pro that has USB-C connectivity. And when I connect it there and record to it, even if voice recording apps and things are open, there's no interference. So I'm only getting that high-pitched whine when it's plugged into my Mac Mini. I'm trying to see what that issue could be. Let's try my laptop. Without driving myself crazy and attempting every possible connection, when I have the microphone connected to a battery-operated device, like the iPad, which it totally works on, totally use it for Clubhouse or whatever, or My MacBook, when it's not connected to USB power, what if it's when it is connected to power? That will be the way to tell for sure. Let's see. Okay, nothing. Interesting. Okay. So whether or not the MacBook is connected to power doesn't matter. I don't get the high-pitched whine. The iPad, battery operated, no high-pitched whine. Connected either to my external hub or directly to the Mac Mini, which is obviously plugged into the wall, then I get the high-pitched whine. So it seems that it's related to somehow the Mac Mini's power source. Very, very strange. As mentioned, though, the MV7 had no problem being connected to the Mac Mini, which is plugged into the wall. So I could keep pulling at this thread and potentially drive myself into madness because there's so many variables here. If this were like a main use case where everybody who's buying this microphone is definitely going to be using it with XLR and USB at the same time, I would want to dig into this more. But in my opinion, or at least my very subjective experience, that's a very rare case. For me, never something I would do. So I'm not going to freak out about it too much. But just know that if you get this microphone and you do want to use it with USB and XLR at the same time, and you're connecting it to a computer that is connected to wall power, but not a laptop, so a desktop computer that's connected to wall power, or at least an M1 Mac Mini, let's be real specific, you could get that high-pitched whine. So just be aware of that. So all in all, I think this is a very exciting microphone. I think it puts a lot of functionality and a lot of good sound quality at a very accessible price point for a lot of people. I think this is a microphone that you could grow with for a long time, and that's awesome. So maybe you like this mic, but if you're unsure, there's an entire playlist right here of microphone reviews and comparisons, and maybe in there you'll find a mic that you like, or maybe a mic that you want to say, hey, take a hike. Psych, they're all great.